Hi budding managers, hope you enjoyed last video clips of session 2. In this the video clip 12, we are going to discuss quantitative, systems and contingency management perspectives. Before we discuss these three perspectives, I wish to rewind the previous video clips for your information. When we see the video clip, 7th one, I remember, in which we discussed about the differences between manager and leader. These two are very, interchangeably used in a normal conversation, but you will find the differences between these two at workplace when they practiced. Similarly, we also understood the differences between management and administrations. How these two are also differs from each other when they practiced in different levels of management. We are aware that the administration is there mostly with the top management that exists among the higher level officials. And whereas if you see the management is there at the middle level and mostly operational level management, right? So the video was followed by the next video where we discussed about the professionalism and how the professionalism is actually looks like the courses like management or the law or medicine. So like you will find that there are so many the professions, and each and every profession has its own the code of conduct, right? So the norms are there for each professions. Similarly, if you look at the management professions, the management profession also has its own the code of conduct, right? In terms of the managers, the attire and satire, the way they look, the way they talk, right? The way in which they walk in corridors and then handle the various situations and issues. In that respect, you can see that you'll find the professionalism and something is that differs, right? The different from the non-professional the courses, right? So similarly you can see that the doctors as a profession, how the doctors look like in terms of their the code of conduct, right? Similarly you can see the engineers and then the lawyers. So that means each and every profession has its own the code of conduct and then a kind of the modalities in practice. So why I'm just describing these things again to you, because you are the budding managers. So you're supposed to understand the nuances of the completely the management, the profession, and then you should acquire and then develop those things within you, so that that will be reflected outerly in your the movement and then interaction with others, right? So that is the main thing. So further, I think we discussed about the professional manager tasks. I think there are a bunch of tasks are there. The manager is supposed to takes care at workplace. So that is the another the dimensions. So I think that video again connected to the next the flow of the discussions. I think we introduced the management thoughts, management the thinkers who are actually contributed a lot for the development of the management field. So in that direction, if you see that we discussed, I think the differences among theory, practice and history in between, right? So I think we all know that the practice that happens out of the theory is required for practice. That is in general norms. And whereas if you see the management actually evolved build theory out of the practice. Most of the thinkers, most of the theorists, and who actually the practiced management out of their the workplace, they just they develop the management ideas and then recorded, developed the literature that later on became the theory for the management. Okay, so in this way you can see the management thinkers, they have contributed a lot for the management the domain or discipline. Okay, in that context we have seen the 5 different thoughts or 5 different schools, right? The first school that was we discussed the classical management perspective, in which you have the 2 major thinkers, right? The Taylor, who was considered as a father of scientific management 4 principles we discussed. And then again, the second most important thought under the classical management perspective was Henry Foyle's the management ideas, right? So he just proposed the 14 principles of management, right? So then we have seen that the contribution of the classical management thinkers and their limitations also. Based on the limitations of the classical management thinkers, the next school was emerged, right? So that is a behavioral management perspective. So in this behavioral management perspective, all thinkers, they believe that instead of believing the scientific way of designing work, or even scientific way of selecting the employees and then assembling them and expecting more performance at workplace, so that is one part, it has its own limitations. But no, these behavioral thinkers, they just focused on the intervention of the behavior at workplace. And if you take care of their behavioral aspects like their attitude, perception, feelings, and happiness, unhappiness, satisfaction, dissatisfaction, if it is taken care of at workplace, so that leads to increase of the employee productivity and then performance on each and every job. So that was the belief of the behavioral perspective. So in this the direction, we have discussed some of the theories like Elton Mayo's Authoron studies, and then McGregor's the 2 factors theory, and Abraham Maslow's needs hierarchy theory, and then McClelland or McGregor, so and so on. You will find that there are so many thinkers who actually proposed a variety of the thoughts for development of the management, the thoughts in the behavioral school, right? So that is actually followed by this particular perspective, that is the quantitative systems, and then the contingency management the perspective. So in this, so what is the main aim is, so the main aim of this the session is to understand the incorporation or intervention of this quantitative systems and then contingency models in management practices, and then how these are useful for taking decisions at workplace, and their implications on effectiveness and efficiency in executing work and getting the better output. So that is the one important the reason for understanding and then looking at these 3 important the perspectives of management. So in this you can see the third one, right, after classical management perspective and behavioral management perspective. The third one is all about the quantitative management perspective. The quantitative management perspective is to understand, right, the involvement of mathematical models and computer simulations at workplace. How? So these we can just incorporate in the process of management for better output. Right. So when you just look back its history, especially the quantitative management perspective, and this was actually used by army officials in the World War II, especially to minimize the wastage of resources or damage of resources, and then with an efficient manner, how you can attack enemy, right? How you can attack enemy? First of all, identifying enemy's location and the distance between our the base and then enemy's base, and how we can just use our resources very effective manner to attack and then destroy the enemies. So in that context, this quantitative the management perspective was used, and then so that was actually operated in the defense activities. The same the logic and the same the technique was the borrowed defense, and then started using in the business organization, so that we can just minimize our expenditure and minimize our the process, the time that is required in the manufacturing activities or even business activities, so that we can achieve the easiest way of all the activities. So in that context, if you see that the relevance of the quantitative management perspective, if you see that the location and then the market, the location of the manufacturing, location of the marketplaces, so in between you'll find the difference. So to resolve the transportation issue or logistic issues, so the better execution of the tasks with the less time and the less the cost. So the quantitative models and then simulation mechanisms by using the linear programming. So the easiest way of the mechanism was identified by using these quantitative models in the management. So that is the main purpose. So further, if you see the contribution of this quantitative management perspective, so this is all about developing the sophisticated and quantitative techniques to assist the decision making process. So when we are taking decisions, we're supposed to take decisions with the knowledge of accuracy and then facts, or exactly what is what. So that comes when you look at the numerical data and they analyze and interpret and measure everything, and then come out with exact information. If you take decision on that, so your decisions are going to be very successful. Right? In that context, you can see that the focus of this the school is all about using the statistics, optimization, the models, and information models, and also using the computer simulation, as I was mentioning earlier. So this is the way the quantitative management perspective intervened in the management practices for improvement of operational efficiency, right? So further, if you look at the fourth management perspective, so that is all about systems perspective, the systems management perspective. So under this perspective, we believe that the organization itself is a big systems. So within that, you will find the subsystems, right? System and subsystems. So among the subsystems, there is interdependency, right? Interdependency. When you look at the system as a whole, briefly let me tell you, there are three important assumptions, like open system, closed system, and subsystems. Right? The open system, in the sense, how organization as a system interacts with the outside the bodies or outside the systems. Right? So there is always interface, because organization as a system is not in the isolation. It has its own linkage and then interrelationship or interdependence with other systems for various reasons. So then only the organization survives. Right, and at the same time, if you look at the closed system is all about an organization that does not interact or interrelated with any other its environment. So you have that kind of system also. Sometimes like research labs or even some kind of R&D divisions. So they don't have anything because they have their own tasks and then doing in research and then some kind of coming out with some kind of output out of their innovations. There are some kind of systems also, but the number is very less. And the subsystems, like so within the system you will find there are so many the subsystems. Like for example, if you take an organization, so you will find a number of the departments, divisions, and sections. All are the subsystems. So these systems, you can see that as a whole, you can see. These subsystems, why these are important? Because when they are dealing with the entire process, like input to output, you can see the figure here that is given in the slides. So the input level, you will see that there are many resources, and these resources are processed, and you will find the outcome. So the outcome value depends on the input, right? Input values and how it is actually processed, and at the end, so how much we are getting as output. So all these things are this process depends on the alignment among the subsystems of the organization. So there is some kind of perspective in the management. So when you just look at all these the perspectives in a very synchronized manner, so then you will find the ultimate result that what we expected from the organizations. So in that context, you can see that this perspective is very, very useful, and then this perspective is working in such a way that you feel that so this the perspective now used very widely for the benefit of the organization. So with this, let me stop here. So this video, because the two the perspectives we'll discuss in the next video, right? Thank you very much.